Okay, so here just a couple days ago, it's not comfy. Here just a couple days ago, I was watching a YouTube video, and it was my friend Cody Deering, and I think it was called like mentally roping a horse that needed it, or something like that. And everybody should get on the interweb and do computer stuff and look it up, because it's a really cool video. And he does some really pretty work in it. Just does some amazing things. So I was watching it, and I guess before I get into that, full disclosure here, Cody and I are actual friends in the real world, not just the internet world. And I suspect that Cody appreciated the breath in his lungs a lot more than I did when he was a young man, and started learning these other skills that I'm going to be talking about sooner than I did. But anyway, he does some pretty work in this video, and as I was watching it, in the first 30 seconds or maybe a minute, I'm watching, he's working kind of a roguish horse, a pretty roguish horse. He's working it around, and I was thinking to myself, I would forfeit that son of a gun and spill all the air out of his lungs right now and roll him into my saddle, and he would come up thinking that the roof had been pulled down around his ears, and that would be the way, the truth, and the light. And then I continued watching the video, and it got me to thinking about the skill sets we need as horsemen nowadays. So here just the other day, I started a really high class stud colt, and the people that own him gave more money for him than what I'm going to make this year. And I thought the same thing about him, that I'd forfeit that son of a gun and spill all the air out of his lungs. That'd be the right thing to do. And it probably would have been a good thing to do, but I can't afford to risk that. Forfeiting a horse is when a horse lopes past you, you rope him by his front legs, and you rope him between the knee and the hock. And as soon as he feels it, he goes to striking at the air, because he feels that you've roped his front feet. And when his front feet are off the ground, you pull his feet out from under him. And when you do it right,
Between the knee and the hock.
did I say the knee and the hock?
Yeah.
Knee and the pastern. You catch him between the knee and the pastern. And when you do it correctly, it flips the horse all the way over, and he lands on his offside, right on his side, and it knocks all the air out of him, and gives you more than enough time to go over there and roll that horse into your saddle while he's on the ground, and then straddle him, and that horse gets up with you on him, and Bob's your uncle. There's your first ride. When it's done right, it is beautiful. It is artistic. It takes an amazing amount of skill to do it right. And it's absolutely, totally an unnecessary skill to have nowadays. When I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I learned how to do it. I was buying rogue horses, 4, 5, 6-year-old horses out of sale barns that were either spoiled or unstarted. And that's a pretty handy skill for a 15-year-old kid to have, riding those kind of horses. And, 110-pound kid, if you develop the skill and the art of it right, you could just lay one down just as easy as could be and not hurt them. And then they were Play-Doh in your hands. That was a cool thing to be able to do at one time. That's a totally unnecessary skill to have. I can tell you exactly the last time I did it. It was in Nebraska with the famed 2-year-old cutting horse trainer, Sean Strickland. And it was unnecessary at that time, but we did it because we did it. We were in our 20s, and we did it just because we could. But it's a totally unnecessary skill. And so watching Cody's deal, I got to thinking about the skills that a modern horseman needs. I've got a whole bunch of skills that Will James needed, and I learned how to do them, and they were handy for me for a little while. But I don't ride those kind of horses anymore. I'm never going to ride those kind of horses. I don't want to ride those kind of horses anymore. I will never forefoot a horse and lay him down like that and roll him in my saddle ever again. I won't teach my kids how to do it because they don't need to know how to do it. There's no reason to do it anymore. If that kind of horse doesn't really exist anymore, and the few that do, I'm not going to ride them. So I got to thinking about the kind of skills that we need to develop now as modern horsemen. We've got a lot of these traditional skills that are archaic and are unnecessary, and we just don't need. But modern horsemen, there's a lot of other skills that we do need. Recognizing when a horse has ulcers and needs gut X. That's a skill I'm trying to develop right now. Understanding different feed sources and different kinds of supplements and what they do. Understanding what's the most efficient, what's the most cost effective, what's going to do me the best in the long run according to how this horse is going to be ridden and the things that are going to be done. These are the kind of skill sets we need to develop now. When I left Nevada, the first time I left Nevada, I was 22 or 3 and went to Montana to Jim Leachman's, and there was like 1,000 head of broodmares on that place, and just colts and colts and colts from 2-year-olds to 6-year-olds. And my wife and Justin Slager and I spent all summer just gathering colts and starting them, gathering colts and starting them, gathering colts and starting them. And every one of those old school traditional skills that I learned as a kid came in handy then. And then I went to Lexington, Kentucky and started some of the highest class thoroughbreds on the planet right after that. And none of that stuff mattered then. I was riding $1 million horses. None of the things I knew how to do really mattered. And a bunch of those things have never mattered since. And so these are the things that we need to think about. If we want to be good horsemen, and especially if we want to follow the traditions, well, traditions change and they morph and they grow. And so understanding when a horse needs its teeth floated, that's a lot better thing to know how to do than fouling a bronc. Because I'm not going to foul any more broncs in my life, and most of you will never even see a bronc that needs fouled. Foodstuffs, ulcers, those things I was talking about, understanding how saddles fit better and how pads fit better, learning about your ground and how to get a horse to work properly in better ground, things like that. These are all the new skills that us modern horsemen need to learn. And you can read Will James all you want, and don't get me wrong, I've said and I will say everything I ever needed to know I learned from Will James. But watch Cody's video and you'll find out, you'll see that there's a lot of things that we can learn that weren't passed down in the old traditions and are things that will do us more good now than some of those old things would. And that's that.